and it and so and I guess in tandem with that, I had started producing electronic music also because my brother was like, "Hey, you're loving this stuff. Like, have you ever thought about making it?" And I was literally like, "No, I've literally never thought about making it. But that's a great idea."
Yeah.
So the next day, I torrented a copy of Fruity Loops FL Studio now, which is like a big program that the majority of people like first download. And I remember it vividly because I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't know how to use that software. But I created some like super simple shitty beat and I sent it to my brother. And I was like, here it is, day one. And he said something really awesome where he was like, man, this is shit, but think about like if you do this every day for the next X amount of years, like what the stuff you're going to be sending me is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool, and I'm really grateful to be through those growing pain days because it's not always super fun learning that stuff.
Yeah.
And then yeah, in high school I was just messing around with electronic music in my spare time, but we had a couple other music producers at our school, and one of them was ridiculed quite heavily.
Is there a particular reason?
Well, no, not really. But they changed his name. Like he was ridiculed quite heavily. So I had a lot of like shame around producing electronic music, and I didn't want anybody to know.
Yeah,
And that's what you were doing.
Right. And I definitely didn't want anyone to hear it.
Yeah.
So Alex, my partner, who we've been together since we were 16, she was the only one who knew until she started showing it to people.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I mean, for many years it was just like hopping around from like every song I made was like completely different styles, and I was just exploring, and some of my original songs are up there, and that's where it ties back to the blog Roargasm, because my first alias was Roar.
Yes. Can you do me a favor? Can you spell roar?
R-O-A-R.
Just roar.
Just Roar.
That is incredible.
I love it. I will be finding that.
I was gonna say
I'll link it. There's still songs. The first song I ever released was called Blisseris. Blisseris. I think it's actually a term. I forget what it means. But it's not bad. It's not bad.
I think it's a testament to your creativity that you were making things that young and that you are still doing it.
Yeah.
Well, and also just creating it regardless of like, oh, I'm not very good. You're trying different styles. Like, you weren't so hard on yourself as like, always has to be perfect immediately.
Right.
And then
Yeah, they're kidding. Because I didn't have the skills. Still don't. Necessarily.
They're being refined.
Yes.
What?
The bar keeps raising
skill
myself.
is amazing right now.
Ultimately.
Doesn't mean it can't be risen, but like.
Right.
Are you talking about your skill level right now?
Yeah, that's
your skill level right now is through the fucking.
That's what I'm saying.
No, but I'm just saying, like my bar of perfection keeps rising.
But well, that's okay. It's a good balance of like always just aim for higher, but like we've both seen you play in front of tons of people. Like,
right.
It doesn't just happen because you're okay.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm not saying I'm bad at all. I'm very grateful for where I'm at. But
I want you to say perfect.
You are perfect.
I'm perfect.
Damn right you are.
I actually, so to go back, you mentioned making music that connects people to the divine.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first time you connected to the divine?
That's a great question. Well, I would probably, it definitely had to do with psychedelics. And I got started with psychedelics rather young. And I've mentioned my brother a lot on this podcast, but especially at that age, he had a big influence on my life. And I would say the first time was my first LSD trip. Where I was 17. And it was also, I did it with my partner Alex, and it was also her first LSD experience, as well as, like, she had just smoked weed for the first time, like, 3 weeks before.
That's right, she just got it all done.
Yeah.
I've been there.
She was like, I'm not going to church and...
Drugs.
I
love that so much.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So yeah, my brother sent me 32 tabs of acid in the mail.
And you guys split it and both took 16 each?
No. He was living in Montreal at the time and sent me like it in a journal in the mail with like a bunch of other stuff to make it look concealed. I don't know why, but he felt the need to do that. And I'm very grateful because it was super, super powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. And that was just a big moment. Like everything changed after that.
Yeah.
And that really spurred both Alex and I into this spree of consuming new information and trying things out, like meditating and reading books about tons of different things, like meditation or astral projection or whatever.
Yeah.
We were just like, okay, obviously there's so much more than we've been told.
Right.
And let's learn as much about it as possible and experiment with it as much as possible and try things out. And it was also hugely instrumental because after that, I knew I wanted to do music, so I knew I didn't want to go to college, but Alex thought she was going to college at that point, and things changed after that moment.
Yeah.
Or that was, just when a big catalyst for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that was the first significant spiritual experience I had.
Was your family on the same wavelength as far as you spiritually? Like after that experience for you, were they supportive of that? Was your experice family wise in regards to that kind of?
Yeah, very supportive. Very supportive. My dad used to be pastor when I was very little, a very intense pastor, Christian, hardcore Christian, and but he no longer is, and he's kind of like the opposite of that in a lot of ways, and is a philosophy nut. He's an amazing human being, and so full support on his end.
And an artist as well.
Right. Yeah. And my mom is still Christian in ways, but is also, and still was supportive. Because they found out that we did acid.
Like, we couldn't keep it a secret. We were just,
Did they find, like, your tabs or something?
Yes, but I guess that was the first thing that did happen.
You guys didn't find good hiding spots at that point yet?
Alex's parents read her journal, which is the big thing.
Yeah.
So, that was... But then they did find tabs because I did stupidly hide them in the freezer the night before I did a trip with my brother.
In the family freezer. Mom's going to look for ice.
There's just 30 tabs of acid.
No, there was like 4. And then they found it that night, like 2 minutes after I put it in there. Because my brother was like, oh, we don't want the acid to deteriorate because... if you leave it in a hot space. Yeah. But it was like, it's not going to deteriorate overnight.
Yeah, like in a day.
And I just very quickly was like, oh, that is a school science project. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I'll throw it away. And then when they went to bed, I went in the trash and got it.
What did you say? Like, that's all you had to say? They didn't ask like what the science experiment was or anything? They were like, oh, they just believed you.
Yeah.
You are lucky.
But then once they found out about the journal, they were like, that was acid, wasn't it?
Wait, that's not a science experiment. I mean, it's kind of is.
I just imagine their faces like putting everything together. Oh my god!
I mean, it's a science experiment in space. It's kind of a science experiment.
Yeah.
You just travel in space for it.
I love that, dude. You know what's funny? It's like, you know, in interviewing our friends and talking to people, we notice the themes, right? I always notice the themes. And one of the themes in everyone's story is like the moment where they sort of like stepped outside the matrix for the first time.
Right.
And they were like,
whoa.
what the hell?
They had to.
Yeah, and it seems
Right.
like literally like a prerequisite to the types of lifestyles that we're choosing to live. Like
Right.
that's the first thing.
Totally.
Stepping outside of the old traditional path,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Right.
Is the rest of your family? I don't know a ton about your siblings, and whatnot. Are they all on the similar paths as you are in general, or like are you kind of oddball out in that context?
I am in some ways, sort of, but we all have a lot of similarities. Where none of us graduated from college, and we've all like pursued alternative paths.
Yeah.
Which is funny. It's like both my parents met in college and graduated college, and it's like we're the first in our generation not to graduate from college
I feel
instead
that.
of none of us. Yeah.
I feel that.
And yeah, so my sister Corey is a model and does a bunch of awesome stuff with that. My other sister is a comedian. Lauren is a comedian who's fucking genius, and also does social media, copywriting, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then my brother is like a serial entrepreneur, savant, businessman.
Savant businessman.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we all get along really well and are very open. My sisters haven't explored psychedelics necessarily, but there is still like the connection there. We can still talk about that stuff, which is really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was back to your acid experience? What did your, besides the books and the meditating and all that stuff, like how did that change your life personally and yours and Alex together? Like where did you guys were like 17 at that time?
Yeah.
So like that's a big pivotal point of like when you usually would go to college. Like,
Yeah.
what happened after that for both of like your personally and then?
Yeah. So I feel like what's clicking for me now is that actually that moment really like bonded us together. It like really like set this powerful platform together, and what we experienced afterwards of like having basically our consciousness just explode together from all this new information that was so exciting and nourishing. So yeah, it was kind of like we shared this experience of both growing up Christian and having all that like utterly dissolve. And it was definitely a process. Alex had only applied to go to Christian schools, or those were the only ones she got into. So I think that made the decision easier for her. But yeah, we one day, I don't even know how, but Costa Rica just like came online for us, and I don't know how, but we made the decision to move to Costa Rica right after graduating high school, which was an intense decision to make and was not,
As an 18-year-old.
Yeah. And wasn't received very well by her family, especially.
Yours was fine with it though?
Yeah, because I'm the youngest of four, and none of my siblings went to college.
So they were expecting.
They all went for like a year essentially. So by the time it got to me, and I knew I wanted to do music, they were like, Psh, "This kid." And I actually didn't go to my last year of high school. I did independent study because I knew I didn't want to go to college, and I wasn't having the best time in high school. So.
Yeah.
So we decided, it was just super clear, like Costa Rica, and that was like the first experience of synchronicity as well, because it was this feeling inside of us, and then we just started seeing Costa Rica everywhere, and just like the plans for it, just the heavens opened up, and the perfect house emerged, and it was beautiful.
This was a house like in the middle of the jungle somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like a storage container or something.
Yeah, it was